You know, sometimes life slips through your fingers like sand. You try to hold on, but the tighter you hold, the faster it falls away. My name is Margaret, and I am 81 years old, and when I wake up to the soft hum of the sea outside my window, I still hear the echoes of another time. The waves against the rocks sound like the whispers of people I once knew, and sometimes I wonder if the ocean remembers more than we do. My house is small, white paint peeling a little from the salt wind. But it stands proud on the edge of Maine where gulls fly low and the fog wraps around the morning like a soft blanket. I live alone, but I am not lonely. Not really, because the air in this place is full of ghosts and I have learned to make peace. With them, I make my tea every evening, the same way with 1 spoon of honey. Because William used to say, honey makes everything taste like sunlight. I sit by the same window where the curtains breathe in and out with the wind, and I talk quietly. To the night, people might call it madness. But when you reach my age, you realize madness and memory are just different words for love. It all began in the summer of 1962, and sometimes when I close my eyes, I can still feel that summer, warm on my skin like it never left. It was the kind of summer that smelled like cut grass, salt water, and freedom. The world was changing so fast, but in our little town, time moved slow, like molasses. I was 20, then with hands that smelled of books, and ink, and a heart that believed in forever. I worked in a small bookstore just off the main road, the kind that sold more dust than novels. The doorbell had a sweet, tired chime, and the shelves leaned like old men in need of rest. But to me, that place was a cathedral, a small corner of the world where I could dream between pages. Every morning, I would sweep the floor, open the windows, and let the sea air chase out the night. I did not know then that he would walk in that very same morning. I remember it so clearly even now. The sound of his shoes against the wooden floor. Soft, careful, like he did not want to disturb the silence. I looked up and saw him. A young man, maybe 23. His uniform crisp. His smile shy. His eyes the color of early morning sky. He asked if we had any books about travel. Said he wanted to see the world, and I remember saying, "You do not have to go far. The world comes here if you know how to look." He laughed. Not loud, but deep from somewhere honest, and for a moment, everything else faded. The dust, the old books, even the sea outside. It was just him standing there holding a book like it was something sacred. He came back the next day and the day after, sometimes to buy a book, sometimes just to talk. I learned his name was William Thomas, and that he worked at the post office across the street. He said he liked watching people when they got letters because that was the moment faces changed. The moment hope came home. I liked the way he said things. Like that quiet but full of meaning, we started writing little notes to each other. Though we lived across the street, he would slip folded papers into the bookstore mailbox lines, like "The air smells like your perfume today," or "I saw the sea," and "Thought of you," and I would write back words from books that spoke of things I could not say in my own voice. Each letter made the world feel smaller, like we were building our own secret country out of paper and ink. I did not realize then that I was already falling deeply, hopelessly into something that would stay with me for the rest of my life. That summer became a living memory painted in shades of sunlight and rain. We went to the lighthouse, sometimes the one near the cliffs, where the sky met the sea like a promise. The light would sweep across the water, and for a few seconds it felt like it was shining just for us. He told me stories about his dreams, to see Paris, to stand under the Eiffel Tower, to taste French coffee, and to send postcards to everyone he loved. I told him I had never left Maine, and he said, "Then the world will come to you, Maggie. It always does." But then one evening the sky turned gray and the sea grew restless, and I knew before he even said it, something had changed. We stood by the lighthouse, the wind tugging at our clothes, and he told me he had been drafted into the army. I did not cry at first. I just stood there trying to memorize his face, the curve of his smile, the way his eyes caught the last light of the day. He said he would write to me every week, and that he would come back, that he had to see what the world looked like, so he could tell me all about it. I said I would wait, and he kissed my forehead so gently it hurt. "Promise me you will live and write and dream until I come back," he said, and I promised. But I did not know how heavy that promise would be. The first letter came a month later, written in pencil, because ink was scarce where he was. He told me about the stars above, the camp, about the sound of boots on dirt, about how he missed the smell of the ocean. He said he kept my last letter folded in his pocket and read it every night. He called me his North Star. his safe place, his home, and I would sit under the same moon and write him back, pouring my heart into words that sometimes blurred with tears. The letters kept me alive through that first year. Every one of them smelled faintly of smoke and rain, and I would trace the shape of his handwriting like a prayer. Then one day the letters began to slow. First one missed week, then two. I told myself he must be busy, that maybe the mail was delayed. That war had its own clock. But the silence grew heavier each day, and hope started to feel like a lie still. I waited. I would walk to the post office at dawn every morning, pretending to buy stamps, but really just hoping the postman would say, "There is one for you, Miss Margaret." One more from him, but he never did. The seasons changed, the bookstore closed. The world kept moving, but I stayed frozen in that waiting. I took care of my mother when she fell ill. I learned to smile when people said you will meet someone else. I tried to believe them, but my heart had already chosen its ghost. Life does not stop, even when your heart does. It just keeps moving like the tide, no matter how much you beg it to wait. Sometimes I think that is the cruelest kindness of all. After William's letters stopped coming, I learned the art of pretending that I was fine, pretending that waiting was not slowly turning into forgetting. I filled my days with small routines, sweeping the porch, folding laundry, making tea in the same chipped mug that had once held both our hands. I found ways to talk to him in silence. When I read books, I would imagine him on the other side of the page listening. I used to press flowers between the letters I had from him, because I thought maybe if beauty stayed close to his words, the sadness would soften. People said I should go out, meet someone new, and I did try once or twice, but every face blurred into his. Every voice sounded wrong, too loud, too fast. Not him. I remember one man asked me why I looked at the sea so much, and I told him, because it is the only thing that understands waiting. He laughed and said, "You are strange." I smiled and said, "I know. Years have a way of bending around you without asking. One day you are 20, dreaming about forever, and then suddenly you are 30, standing in front of a mirror trying to remember what your dreams even were." My mother grew weaker, and I became her hands, her nurse. Her shadow. When she passed, I buried her with one of his letters tucked in her pocket, because she used to say that love should not die alone. After the funeral, the house felt too quiet, too large, too full of echoes. I sat on the porch and watched the mailman pass without stopping, and I thought maybe this is what the end of a story feels like. Not loud, not tragic, just slow fading. Then came Charles. He was not William, and maybe that was his kindness. He was steady, calm, like the sound of rain on a tin roof. He worked as a carpenter, his hands strong and gentle when he held a cup of coffee, or when he fixed the broken steps on my porch. He never asked too many questions about the box of letters on my desk. He just smiled softly when he saw me reading them. One evening he said, "Maggie, I do not need to know the past to love who you are now," and maybe that was enough for me to say yes when he asked me to marry him. We were married in a small church by the sea. The air smelled of lilacs and salt. I wore a simple blue dress, because white felt too much like pretending. I remember standing at the altar, thinking about how love comes in different shapes, and maybe this was another chance, another beginning. He held my hand, and I promised to try. And I did. I tried to love him truly. I did. But love cannot grow where half a heart still looks backward. Some nights he would find me sitting by the window staring at the horizon, and he would say, "Are you waiting for the dawn or for a ghost?" And I would answer, both. Our marriage was gentle but quiet, like two people living beside each other instead of inside each other. He gave me peace, but peace can be lonely too. He wanted children. I wanted silence. And so the years drifted by in the slow rhythm of compromise. I learned to cook his favorite stew. I learned to laugh at his bad jokes. I learned to sleep without dreaming of letters. And then one cold January morning, he did not wake up. The doctor said it was his heart. I sat beside his bed and held his hand until it grew cold. I cried, but not for love. I cried because life once again had taken someone who tried to love me, even when I could not give all of myself. After the funeral, I came home to an empty house. The same house I still live in today. The same white paint, the same porch, the same sound of the waves. And I opened the drawer, and there they were. The old letters tied with a blue ribbon, and the one I never sent. The one that began "My dearest William" and ended with "I will never let you go." I read it again and again until the paper felt like
Leave.
skin,
The candle
until
flickers
the ink
one
felt
last
like
time,
breath I
then
never
the flame
mailed.
steadies.
Bright for a moment before dimming, I whisper, "Thank you, William, for loving me, for waiting, for finding your way back to me across the years. Across the silence, across everything." I rest my hand over the letters. The paper warm from the candlelight, and I close my eyes. Outside, the sea keeps breathing. The wind hums softly through the window. The stars shimmer faint above the water, and somewhere, beyond the sound of waves, I know he is there, smiling, waiting, reaching out his hand. The promise kept the circle complete, and as the night deepens, I feel lighter, like the tide pulling gently home.